Good morning, everyone. I am Miss Janeline C. Alfonso from ME English, and I will be discussing the three-dimensional grammar framework application in teaching. My group mates already discussed about the three-dimensional grammar framework, and I will be dealing about the application in teaching. When it comes to grammar and grammar instruction, there are three foci you need to constantly keep in view, and those are meaning, form, and use. As you can see, we have here the diagram or the framework. We have the meaning or semantics, the form or structure, and the use and pragmatics. As you can see, there are open-ended arrows, meaning um, there is no particular um, arrangement for this. The three-dimensional grammar framework, in my discussion, I started it with the meaning. Meaning is the first one, and it is semantics in other words. It is what the grammar itself communicates. Each grammar tense and each grammar point has a reason for its own existence. It communicates something in its own right, and that is something that we need to instruct our students. The next one, we have here the form, or how is it written or spoken. As a teacher, we can use grammar charts or formulas. Grammar charts would have an infinitive, for example, of the verb or infinitive form of the verb at the top, and then list all of the different conjugations. Formula will talk about how sentence is constructed. Form is also how it is spoken, the pronunciation, and this is particularly important for grammar tenses. The last one that we have here is the use. Use is the larger picture of how it is communicatively used within a discourse, how and when we use this to communicate within a context. All of them are important, but use is going to be the one of the hardest and most important thing for you to factor into your lesson planning. If we're going to use three-dimensional grammar framework in application with teaching, let's say, for example, the topic is about present simple. Let's have the meaning. It's repetitive action or habits, generalization, facts or beliefs, near future scheduled events. Under form, the students might use I plus you or you, and then they or we, and then verb. I, you, they, we plus verb. Then they can also use he, she, it plus verb plus s. And as a teacher, you can ask them to use the present simple in this following ideas for use. Let's say you ask them to describe yourself or a friend or a family member, etc. In personal habits, if it's the topic, what do you do every morning, day, night, your uh, your favorite day of the week, and why? Or the topic might be, what does a firefighter do, if you want it to become specific. Or what does a good student do, what does a dog do. That's for present simple. The next one, if the topic is past continuous or progressive, in under meaning, it's specific time as interruption, past action interrupted with past participle or past simple, sorry, parallel past action, two verbs in this sense. And under form, the pronoun I, he, she, it plus was, or the linking verb was plus verb plus ing, and you, they, we plus were plus verb plus ing. That's the form. Unlike with the present continuous, where you don't use contractions. And if you are going to ask them to write a paragraph or an essay using the past continuous or progressive, the ideas for use, we have here, what were you doing at specific times yesterday? A personal story. They can tell a personal story, the funny, the sad, or the embarrassing moments that they had. And they can also describe their best travel experience. If the topic is about adverbs of frequency, in meaning, the frequency or lack thereof of action or habits. On their form, you can tell them, or this is how it is formed: pre or post position of sentence. Often, the example is, often I go to the movies. Positions before verbs for simple verbs: I often go to the movies. Between auxiliary verbs and main verbs, you should never give up. Another example: I am always sleeping at 5 a.m. I have often seen him there. And if you are going to ask them to write something that uses the adverbs of frequency, some ideas for use is the same as present simple but with added information. They can describe themselves or a friend or a family member. The personal habits: what do they do every morning, day, night, their family, what is their favorite day of the week, and why. And in specific ones, what does a firefighter do? What does a good student do? What does a dog do? Using the adverbs of frequency. And the last one, if the topic is complex sentences, for the meaning, the teacher will discuss the connecting simple sentences via coordinating conjunctions, and end is used for additional information. So for the result, but for contrast and or for alternatives. For the form or to form a sentence, we use the SVO plus, or the subject verb object, plus, or the conjunction, plus SVO, or the subject verb object. Once again, if no second subject, no comma needed, and not a complex sentence. For the ideas to or some ideas for use, they can write anything communicative. According to the reference I got, some of the people might wonder why he chose to present this foci in this order, from the meaning, form, and then the use, while others might present it with form first and then meaning and then use. It is because, according to him, we as language teachers need to strive to keep meaning in focus throughout our lesson plans. Some are focusing on form, then they find it very difficult to break out that focus. An example would be prompt that asks the student, while write 5 sentences using the present perfect, for example. According to him, that is a poor language prompt because we don't create language for the purpose of using a language point. We create language for the purpose of communicating something meaningful. So, as a much better language prompt would be, write 5 sentences communicating rather your life experience about travel. And then right after that, you will say, you could then add use the present perfect. Or let's say, for example, you will tell them, okay, everybody, you will write a you are going to write 5 sentences about your life's experience about your travel, and then right after that you will tell them, use the present perfect, or the present perfect tense. And that's how three-dimensional grammar framework is used in teaching language or teaching grammar. That's all, and thank you very much for listening in my report.